It's quicker by rail. Let the train take the strain.
Go to work on an egg.
Join Jools and Jim on our Joyride. On this podcast, I'm particularly delighted to welcome one of the greatest singers in the world, as far as I'm concerned. Yep. Also, royalty, because it's none other than the living Boogie Woogie Queen, Her Majesty, the Queen of Boogie Woogie, Ruby Turner.
Oh, yes!
Hello! How lovely. Thank you for the invite. How lovely. Thank you.
We have toured all over the world, of course, together in different sorts of places. But what's your favourite? Do you enjoy travelling?
I do. You know, as a baby, my stepmom said to me when I was a child, she said, on your feet, you have a traveling mole. And that means you're always going to keep moving. As a baby, I had a little black spot in the sole of my feet.
Oh.
And she said, I've got a traveling mole. Of course, as a child, you don't know what that meant. Of course, I left Jamaica age 9. And my career is such that I have not stopped traveling, you know, nearly 30 years and on. And what a journey it's been. It's really quite wonderful. And I love being out on the road. You know, it's one of those, there's a sense of freedom. And as much as I love my home, and when I'm due to tour, it's very difficult to tear me from the doors because I'm hanging on for dear life. I'm taking everything with me that reminds me of home. Well, once I leave, I feel abandoned and free, you know, yeah.
Exactly, one less thing to worry about. Out of interest, the travelling mole, just because a lot of the listeners to this podcast will be saying to themselves, have I got one of those? So where was it located on your foot?
On the heel, you know, the base of your feet on the heel, just on the sole, the flat part of your heel. And it's still there, I think. I haven't grown it out, it's still there.
I have an actual garden mole that I ride around on.
No,
That's my travelling mole.
No, I ain't got that kind of mole. But yeah, and that kind of stayed with me over the years. And the more I toured and the world and stuff, it's just, then I thought maybe she was right. And I don't seem to have a problem leaving home, and I don't seem to have, you know, I don't get a sort of, I must get home. I don't have that at all.
Do you know do you take stuff with you? Because people take a pillow, don't they, and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, when the tours we do now, I take a pillow because I'm on, you know, in the bus, and so just to be comfortable. But something that reminds you of home, to make you feel comfortable. So yeah, just a little something, you know, something, yeah.
Yeah, I take my sofa with me.
Yes, he takes his sofa and some armchairs with him where he goes to make him feel comfortable.
Take my 3-piece suite and my mantelpiece.
Yes, I mean,
that's the size of your tour bus.
Yeah.
But I think you're right, Ruby. Once you get out on tour, it's quite nice. Once you've got the feel of the open road, the nicest bit about being on tour is if you just keep going to a different place every day. If you go back home and then come out again, that's what makes it difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite wonderful. I mean, you know, during this lockdown, I've sort of gravitated to anything to do with touring the UK, or, you know, anyway, Joanna Lumley, whoever. It was wonderful. Those documentaries they do where they go across the UK, and I'm sitting there thinking, I've been there on the road. I've passed through there. Just wonderful places in the UK, and I just want to be there now. I just want to go to those places. I want a camper van. I want a Winnebago Papa job, and I'm going to do this tour. When it's coming, I'm not going anywhere abroad. I'm staying in the UK. This is such a wonderful, wonderful country to visit, you know. So lockdown, you're not locking me down. I'm off.
Yeah, nobody's. There wasn't anybody born who could lock you down, Ruby. I know that.
No, they're not locking me down. I'm off.
Did you say you've bought one, or you're going to get?
No, I've investigated thus far. I think I've got to sell a lot of things to get one of those.
Okay, here's my tip, because I had a Volkswagen camper van, which was great, because it's about the size of a car. You get one that size, you're all right. I then hired a bigger one and went around the Lake District, and you're going over tiny humpback bridges, which are about 6'6" wide, and you realise you can't get over them. And then you just get out and weep because there's a queue of 5 miles of traffic behind you because you're driving so tentatively. When you're not travelling, though, Ruby, how do you get about? Have you got a car, a bike, a foot?
Well, in this lockdown, I've been very much taking advantage of, you know, the couple of hours you get to go and wander the streets. And it's another interesting thing because all this time I've lived here, I've never really explored the area as such. But this whole year has allowed me to, which you didn't have to see it all in one day. You can go a little further in and further out. You take more time going around it. So that's what I've been kind of doing. I've been doing a lot of wandering. There's around, because where I am, I'm very fortunate, very quiet. There's a little bit of countryside and a canal bank. So I wander up the canal bank and this canal bank goes into Stratford-upon-Avon. Although I'll never walk that, it's too far. I wouldn't be able to make it. But it's lovely. I go into the canal bank and all the ducks and the moorheads are all on it. And that's really great. And I bring stale bread down and feed them and it's wild and that's really great. And then I go into the fields and we got a Christmas tree farm close by and there's cows in the fields and that's really great. So it's been really lovely how taking that little time out to explore where you live, being really localized. And then I go to my local shop and get to know the people in the shops more. And then further up the road, there's a little church that's not my church, it's a C of E church, but they had the doors open, during the lockdown. And I'd go in on a Wednesday and a Saturday. And I made that part of my walk. So I'd do 2 miles on a Wednesday and maybe a Saturday, 2 miles on a Wednesday, and I go up to the church and I sit there all by myself. There's nobody in, and the candles lit at the far, and I just sit there and I talk to God there, and have a moment by myself and just be grateful and then I come home. And so it's been really kind of just doing a lot of walking, and obviously it's good for me as well, and good for me to do more walking. So they tell you
that'll get you into shape, because when you're back on tour, you can then, when you're exploring, because it's true when you arrive in Dusseldorf and you've only got 2 hours before sound check, you've got to get as much in as possible.
I notice you do that quite a lot, Julian. No matter where you are, you're off, your hat's on, and you're gone. We've done our European tours, which have been fantastic. We love that. And what I used to really, what I adored was that we'll get to the venue or get to the hotel. And I think all of us individually used to just wander off and take in particularly in Europe, because the chances are I might never go back or whatever, take in the vibe, taking the places, and we've met many a times wandering the streets of Amsterdam or places in Linz in Austria. Yeah. Oh, look where you're coming from. It was just great.
Do you walk around and imagine, for those, just like as you're walking around, I might, if I was here, I might live in that house, and I might, that's the restaurant I'd go in, and that would be my. Do you imagine sort of living in the places you walk around in?
Well, yes and no. I think maybe because at the back of my mind, I know I got my home. What I'm actually experiencing is another place. I'm absolutely appreciating these wonderful countries. No, I don't covet wanting to be and stay, because I know what it is that I'm doing. I'm touring and we're passing through. And I just think it's just really important for me to go and look at it and see it and take it in. Like I said at the beginning, that I think I've got wanderlust, and to be in one place that's not home, then I think that I'll be cheating myself in not seeing other parts of the world. Because don't forget, we did a world tour and we went to Argentina.
Yes.
And I'll never forget that. My suitcase was still in Sydney, Australia, and I was wandering the streets to find clothes for the gig that night, And
do you mean did your suitcase get left behind? You mean?
Yes, yeah. It was like, I had to buy a brand new case. In actual fact, I bought a brand new case, and then we flew because Argentina was the last gig for us, and boarded. Got everything came off the conveyor belt bar my brand new case. And so it was a day before it turned up again, all bashed with the wheel, all bashed in. But that day when I had to find clothes, but it was wonderful. I was walking down the street and the women, people in the shops, they were so great. I didn't speak in Spanish, isn't it, in Argentina. But anyway, I had to make myself understood. But they were so helpful. And I never got to the Pink Palace, but I managed to get around to other little bits of Argentina. And so, it's great to say you want to live there, but not really, because I want to go to Brazil. I want to go to other places in New Zealand. Oh, now there's somewhere I could probably live, because I've been to New Zealand about 5 times, and I just love the slow pace of New Zealand. I love it's completely unspoiled. It's like going back into the 50s. And it's so open, there's so much space, and I'll never forget that. And the people are so warm and friendly and lovely. And I remember really fell in love with New Zealand more so. You know, when we got to Sydney, I mean, that just wild. You know, Bonsai Beach was great, and Sydney Harbour, where we just running around eating more food than you want to, and which is great. But I would never say I want to live there.
Yeah.
Whereby New Zealand had something that was just kind of laid back and, you know, kind of suited my personality, I think. I think being a musician, that's probably what's done it as well. We're so used to being on the move. When retirement hits, I don't know what I'm going to do, but, you know, everything stops and falls off and you can't do much. I don't know. I probably have to write a book of some sort, but
you're not going to
shaking your head.
You're not going to retire. I forbid you from retiring ever.
What's your earliest memories of travelling around?
Traveling, I tell you what, one of my earliest memories of traveling, I'll go back to Jamaica when I was due to come to this country, and I didn't have a passport, so I had to go to Kingston because I lived in Montego Bay, and I had to go to Kingston, and the railways were working then. You know, now I don't think the railways. Don't ask me what's going on.
What, in Jamaica? They're not working.
In infrastructure, Jamaica's in a, you know what I mean? I won't even go there. But I'll never forget being on that train and that very long journey. And every time it stopped, people with oranges would come to the window, and it was like real hustle and bustle selling things, and whatever season, because Jamaica, you know, it goes through the seasons. So you might have mango season, orange season. There's a fruit we call the guinep season, and my dad would just be buying stuff, and yeah, well, I'll never forget that trip.
But then the other huge journey, really thinking about huge journeys, is when you came to England, because how old were you? And you were on your own on the plane, weren't you?
Yeah, I was 9. I was 9 years old, and I came. But I was one of those confident little kids, you know. Because I never knew my mom, so I was coming to England to meet my mom for the first. I was so excited, and I had a nice church hat on, and I had my handbag, my little white handbag, my pleated skirt, and I was like, and my gloves, and I mean, this is how, like, I was going to church. This is like the West Indians didn't turn out, you know. And my mom and me, she set me off all dressed up and everything, and I came to England, you know, on a BOAC flight, and it was really quite a culture shock in every way, you know. A culture shock to meeting my mother for the first time. Who are you, kind of thing. It really was a bit like that. I mean, you know, hey, we've got on. I mean, we get on great now, but whoa, that was some years of, you know, just as we grew up, you learn about bonding. What do you know about bonding as a kid? You know about bonding, and now I understand what it means to have a parent and raised with a parent, and the bond you have with your siblings and your mom and your dad. I never had that. I was 9. So by which time my bonding was back in Jamaica with my dad and my stepmom, Mama May, and my brother Robert. So it was a whole new thing for me. But fortunately, I guess I was the kind of kid that was full of adventure and excitement and anything's possible, because I had no fear. I was excited to learn new things, and this was going to be great. What an adventure.
Do you drive, Ruby?
I do. I learned to drive very late in life. I was about 27 when I passed my test. And my first little car was a Fiesta Ghia.
Oh, nice.
I mean, top of the range, a little Ghia, little Ford Ghia. It was lovely, little dark windows. I loved that little car. It was really great. So now my confidence was growing. I could get myself around, and people didn't have to wait, you know, put people out. That was the other thing, putting people out to take you home. That didn't feel right with me. And then my second car was a Maestro MG. Do you remember that one? The first talking car. And the light of the got the lights on. And low fuel, handbrake on. It used to tell you, give you instructions.
Well, it said the words to you.
Yeah, the car used to the lights. Yeah,
I never knew that.
I didn't.
And got hit on the because I was just rubbish. Spun round. Anyway, it limped home. My then manager made me drive. I rang him, Jeff, I had a car. And he said, right, I'm coming. And he came and he made me drive the car home. And as I was driving, it was going, handbrake on, lights on, and it kept.
I know you're saying, I'm tired. I'm so very tired.
I want to go home now.
Look what you've done. And it was just like, but there was such a good thing. He made me, almost you hear the expression, getting back on the horse. And because I drove it home, it made me continue driving. Because I think if I didn't get back in the car, I probably would have given up with fear, you know. But I drove it home, and it just kept, from then on, got it fixed, but it kept telling me the handbrake was on. You're on the motorway, 60 mile an hour, handbrake on. I said, no, it's bloody ain't. Anyway, I got rid of that little number. And then I got myself, you know, talk about joyrides, because this program about joyrides, because I didn't realize I was a bit of a petrol head, but I clearly was. And I bought my dream car, and that was my joyride. It was a BMW 3 Series injection from my record company, Jive. And oh my goodness me, that car was something else. Black, oh, it sat hard. I said, this car knows its way home, because I'd get in this vehicle and I'd be recording at like whatever time at Jive, at Battery Studios in Harlesden, late at night, and I'd get in this BM, and somehow I was home in no time. This car just knew its way home, you know, the cornering, everything about it was just beautiful.
But I like to what Ruby's saying there about when you had those when you first got introduced to German cars, because they're very sure-footed, fast, solidly built. Really great.
Incredible. I think it's just the whole handling of the vehicle, but being able to handle it and the way it sat on the road. You know, there was no that tin. I mean, I've been in them, that sort of, you know, you go around the corner, you felt it's like on one leg, you know. This was solid. But then I think I was a better driver after hitting the other talking thing. You know, I was much more conscious of holding, holding onto the steering very well and doing the right thing. But this car, I just felt so solid, so safe, and I absolutely love this little vehicle. And then, you know, I always said I'd sell the house before I sold the car. It was a really strange thing to say. In the end, I had to give it up because, you know, it was just falling apart after a while. But when
did I just hear you said it was a she, the car?
Yeah, yes. Well, yes, I called her. Yeah, she was reliable and she was solid and she knew her way home, man.
But some cars, but that's right. But some cars are she's and some are he's, aren't they? I think.
Yeah.
I used to have an old Chevrolet Corvette, but that was a he. I just felt it was a he.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I don't know what it is. Yeah, it's like the age of a car, and also there's the approach, the look of a car, because a Fiat Cinquecento is a she.
Although, you know, for instance, you might get an old Foden lorry that could be a she too.
Yeah, you could, couldn't you? Yeah.
You know.
I used to have an old Morris Traveller, which would be a she, but a very old she, an old lady.
Yes, old teacher, retired teacher.
Yeah, it's just a nice, but very nice, benign old lady.
Yeah.
Driving Miss Daisy style car.
What about the bicycle? Let's just move on to that for a moment, because I think I took you on a bicycle in the delightful Dutch university city of Groningen.
For some unknown reason, I'm not very good on anything that's got to anything, you know. I don't trust myself. I just think I'm going to end up in a hedge somewhere, and I have. But also, I remember thinking, you know, in Holland, I also sit up and beg bikes. I love that. I love in Holland all these beautiful women, and everyone looks so tall and graceful, and they can cycle with their hands in their pockets and it all. And I went, I want one of those. I can do this. And so I remember one of the tours, I went and I found myself a bike for €100. I said, I want to sit up and beg bikes. I put a basket and I feel great. It'd be great. So I found this secondhand shop, and I bought this bike. And then I got on top of this bike, and then I tried to cycle back to the hotel. Waited at the traffic lights and realised I was taller than the cars. Yeah,
I think the best thing about cycling is when you've got a high bicycle like this, I don't know if you find this as well, that you, especially around twilight, you can go around and it's the nosy parker's perfect vehicle, because you can silently pedal around and look at everything that's going on and then pedal off if you're spotted. It's really perfect.
Well, a periscope does an equally good job.
Yes,
but I used to go everywhere on my. But when I was a kid, I used to go everywhere on my bike, absolutely everywhere. And one night, me and my mate, I think we were about 13, and we went out for a ride. We went far too far, and when we got right out of town, a long way out into the country, and the sun was starting to go down, and we saw this big, long, steep hill, and we both went down this steep hill. I came flying over the front and went down the hill on my face, and I could hear him behind laughing his head off. He went over, and we were both sliding down this hill. He broke his arm and his leg.
He wasn't laughing then.
No, he wasn't laughing then. And I smashed my face up. We went to a petrol station, and he got taken to hospital and with his bike in the back, and I was made to ride mine back. And it turned out we were going about 15 miles. So I had to ride back. It then started raining, and all one side of my face was shredded.
Oh.
And I was riding back in the pouring rain, and that was the last time I rode a bike with integrity.
Well, that was my first cycling experience was like that, because my first time on a bike ever was I was aged about 4.5, and I was up very early one morning on my own. Everybody else was still in bed. And my friend knocks on the door, says, "Do you want to come cycling?" Aged 4.5, and I just learned to ride a bicycle. So yeah, okay, so I trot out. Poor mother's in bed. She has no idea that I've trundled off like this. To go out to the corner of the bicycles where there's a big hill, and my friend, because we're only sort of 4.5, says, "We better not go down there because that's dangerous, that big hill." I said, "Don't be silly. It's the easiest thing to cycle down a hill. I said, in fact, I think you'll find it's much easier to cycle down a hill than it is up a hill." He said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, look, I'll show you. It's really easy. I'll go first." So I go down the hill, and as I'm picking up speed and the momentum's getting faster and faster, I said that it really is true what I've said. And so I looked back and shouted at him, "Come on, it's easy." And at that point, I then collided with a lamppost. Fortunately, over the road was a glass works where there was a glaziers, and they'd all started work, and they saw what had happened to me, and I was taken into the office of the glass works. In my mind, I was put on an operating table, but I think it was just their sort of filing cabinet or something. Anyway, I was bandaged up, but looking back, I think they sort of overdid it, like they thought, "Oh, this is a doll's hospital, and we've got this little 4.5-year-old." So I literally had sort of my leg in a splint and sort of bandage over my head, and just a finger poking out of this sort of mummified thing, and then pushed my bike back up the hill, which wasn't so easy. Got back home, didn't have a key, of course, because I'm only 4.5. Knock on the door. My mother answers the door, thinks I'm still in bed asleep, sees this sort of mummified figure with sort of blood and just a little finger sticking out of the thing, and faints.
Yeah.
So that was a good morning cycling.
After my incident where I scraped the side of my face off, it turned into a giant scab over one half of my face, which led me to look very much like I would imagine the Phantom of the Opera in reverse.
Perfect.
And here's a message from our sponsors.
Jim, where do you get your grenades from?
My hand grenades? Well, the same places you get your gelignite, I expect. Bomb Alley in Welling.
Oh, for all your explosive needs, it's one shop for bunker buskers, booby traps,
neutron bombs and torpedoes.
Excellent. So what about you? Say we've been aeroplanes, you're flying, the bicycling, walking.
Horse riding. Have you done horse riding?
Have you done that?
I did a bit of that, which was another crazy adventure. I've always said to myself, what is it when people go abroad, we become fearless and we can do anything. We would never do it here. No one would say, we're going to go horse riding, go to a stable, and I would never entertain the idea. Yet, I remember taking my niece to the Dominican Republic for her. She passed her A-levels, or she just finished her A-levels exams, and she was very stressed. And I thought, right, come on, taking a holiday. Let's go there. We'll do a week there, and we can chill out and do stuff. And I'm not the kind of person that goes on holiday and sit liming on a beach and doing nothing. I can't be doing that. I must explore and check it out and see what's going on. So I said, "Oh, let's go horse riding." So got booked this day out on this horse business, and we got there, and there's all these horses, and big horses, little horses. So and the helmets that look like tin cans, and so put this helmet on, and then all of a sudden there's a little bit of a fear that when I saw the size of the horse, I went, "Oh, what are we doing?"
And the horse will smell that. And
you pay. Already paid for it, because you pay for it in the hotel, paid for it. So we're sitting there, and then we've got on this horse, and I thought, okay, that's all right. We're just trotting. There's about 7 or 8 and nicely trotting, and then he decides to speed up, the lead man, but then of course the horses decide to speed up. What we're doing? So shouting, stop! No, don't make it go any faster. Next thing I know, we're going through, up hills. You can't stop me. We're on this horse now, And I'm worried. I thought, what have I done? My sister's child, I brought her all the way to Dominican to put on a horse. And we're both, and Renee, she's hanging on, Renee's holding, and I'm holding on, trying to be brave. And all things go through my head. And I thought, just calm down. It'll be off in a minute. Be off. And you're praying for that 20 minutes horse ride to end. I could not believe what a stupid thing to do. You've never ridden before. What make you think you could have done that? But how easy, I realized how easy it is to go and do something like that and end up regretting it, you know? So that was one of those joy rides that turned into a nightmare.
I used to ride a bit, not a lot, but when I was riding, I also did a record which was it was a techno version of Abide With Me, and we had to do the video for it, and it was very sketchily done, but not very well thought through. And I said, I just want to parade around on a horse and do some flash moves. And I was riding around. I said, I'll put a bit of mud on my face to make myself look more rural. And so I rode around on this horse, and then they got a circus horse rider in who could do handstands on the horse. And he dressed the same as me. He put on my muddy clothes.
Stunt double, if you will.
A stunt double, but an expert. And he was like riding along, and then he'd jump off it, run along the ground a bit, then jump, and then do a somersault, stand on his hands on the saddle. And so when we got the video back, I was telling everybody that that's me doing all those stunts on that. Yeah. And I convinced a lot of people that I was an absolute expert horse rider for a long, long time. But some people probably think it was me.
Well, I don't. I think I did until you broke the magic spell just now by telling us. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not really a horsist. Really, I don't. I've tried it a couple of times, but I think you need to start early. I think with the horses. And I always found I was missing the brakes and the steering, and they don't respond like a car or a motorbike.
Yeah, you were on the iron horse.
I think I might have been, or a wooden one.
No, that's the iron. That's what you call a motorbike. And if you're a health in America,
is that right?
The iron horse. Yeah. Have you not heard that?
No, I haven't. No.
Steel horse, metal horse. It's iron horse. I'm sure it is. I rented it was a Suzuki, a small. It wasn't a moped. It was a small motorbike in Egypt, in Luxor. And went for a ride out of the town, which I should never have done, never gone out of the town. Because I thought, it's so nice, I'm in the desert. And a huge truck full, there may have been farmers or soldiers, but they came out and all of them were sticking their legs out of the side of the lorry to try and kick me off the bike into a ditch, which was filled with dead donkeys.
Is any of that true?
It's 100% true, that.
Oh, that is quite a point. I did meet Wally Jumblatt,
yeah,
leader of the Druze militiamen in the Lebanon. I shan't exhaust the listeners with the details of why we were meeting, but I did once meet him. And sort of out of politeness, sort of courtesy, I said he was getting in his car, and I sort of pulled open the door of his car, and he had a Mercedes like 500 sort of thing, like 1980s sort of Mercedes. I tried to open the door and then realised I couldn't open the door. And I thought, what's the matter with this door? And it looked like an ordinary Mercedes, but in fact it was armour plated and had windows that were like an inch thick, which were bulletproof. So the door weighed as much as the whole car almost. So very difficult to open the doors. And I don't know, and I think it must have only gone at about 10 miles an hour with all the weight of it. But yeah, but yeah, that's.
Did he buy the weapons from you?
No, I put him on to you. Well, thanks very much for joining us, Ruby. It's been wonderful having you as the guest here today. And we've travelled, we've gone all around Europe, and we've come from Jamaica. Yeah. And I think most importantly, we've learnt that, and I think maybe a lot of the people, the Joyride listeners, might want to check their own feet for the travelling mole. Can the travelling mole? Because the travelling mole is only on the feet, though. Is that right?
Yeah, well, because you're walking. That's what it means. Yes,
right.
I guess that's what you meant.
Yeah.
The soles of your feet.
I think I've got a travelling verruca, but that'll do for now.
Acquired wear.
Well, there goes Ruby. Lovely to see you.
It was lovely to see Ruby, wasn't it? And interesting, all those forms of transport and the different countries. I'd forgotten all the places we've been on tour. And I've sent you a postcard from every one, haven't I?
Everywhere, yes.
Yes, good.
apart from Scarborough. This podcast was produced and edited by Molly Stewart.
Sound engineers were James Stewart and George Latham.